and welcome to this week's episode of Bob's Live. This week, I've got a couple things that I want to take a look at, and the first thing is somewhere where we haven't been in a while, and we're going to see something pretty awesome that might help you out on these cold, dreary days that we're having. So, let's head out to the greenhouse and see what's happening there. Today I am down here at our field house greenhouse where it is a little bit chilly out here. So let's head inside and take a look at what's growing. Inside this greenhouse is where we grow all of our rooted cuttings. So a lot of the plants that we grow for bedding flats and hanging baskets get their start from seed. But all of these plants get their start as a little cutting off of a mother plant. So let's take a closer look. So each tray of plants here has 104 cuttings in it. And right here in front of me, we have Calibrachoa, and these are in the Calibri series. And they were just stuck in week 3. So these were just stuck last week, and they're just now starting to develop roots. And also we can see here on the label right there that these are going to go into 4.5-inch pots. So the 4.5-inch Bob's Better Blooms pots that you find in our stores, this is how some of them get their start. And over here we have begonias, and these begonias were stuck in stick week 51, so week 51 of last year. And these are going to go into our 10-inch begonia hanging baskets. And where these are stick week 51, they have pretty well developed roots now. So you can see the roots right there growing right out of the bottom of the plant, and there's more roots up here around the top. So really nice root development. And here pretty soon these will be transplanted into their 10-inch hanging baskets. So you might be asking yourself, why grow these plants from cuttings and others from seed? And it has to do with a number of factors, but one of those is climate. So a lot of these plants are growing in greenhouses in tropical climates. So down in South and Central America, and they take the cuttings off the mother plants there and then ship them to us. And they can't ship whole plants because it is, for sanitary reasons, as far as plant disease goes, and like soil-borne pathogens, it's actually illegal to bring plants with roots on them into the U.S. without extremely, extremely strict guidelines. So by doing cuttings and sticking them and then propagating them and growing roots on them, it's a lot more of a simplified process as far as those requirements go. We saw some Calibrachoas that were just stuck last week. These were stuck in week 51, so 5 weeks ago. And you can see the growth on them. And one unintended consequence that's kind of nice is where these are cuttings taken off of a mother plant, they sometimes include buds, so we get some little preview blooms that are really cute. Unfortunately, these little blooms are probably going to get trimmed off in the next week or so. Something that we'll do is feed these through a trimmer and give them a haircut, and that tells the plant to branch out and get bushier. But again, these that have been growing for a few weeks, you can see that just vigorous, amazing root growth on the bottom of the plug. So that's a quick look at what's happening down here at our field house greenhouse. All right, so yeah, that's what's happening down at the field house. And we grow some of our plants from cuttings, and then we also grow, well, the bulk of everything that we grow is seed. So the cuttings, we don't do as many. Like, we grow close to 200 million plants a year from seed. The cuttings, they all have to be stuck by hand. So each one of those plants gets stuck into a plug of soil by hand. And we have a crew of people that do that. It's not really something that, a robot could do. Seed sowing, on the other hand, we have specialized machines that use vacuums and stuff. And a person's able to feed a tray through one of our seed sowers, and it can sow the seeds really quickly. So it really comes down to the type of plant and the growth requirements and all of that good stuff. I just locked my phone so I can't see the comments. There we go. Now I can see it. I watched the broadcast on my phone so that way I can see the Facebook contents. I see Patty joined. Hi. And yeah, if you're watching right now, give us a thumbs up, and then also share this broadcast so other people can join in. The next thing that I want to talk about, and I think I'm going to play the video first and then talk about it after, is something that we kind of hit on last week, and that has to do with the USDA and the zone map. So if you're an experienced gardener, you've probably seen this map before, or if you buy seeds, you've probably seen a simplified version of this map on a seed packet. But let's jump into it, and we'll see why it's changing and what we need to know about it. Hello. Today I am standing out here in the cold to tell you it's getting warmer. Yeah, it makes sense if you don't think about it. Basically, over the last 30 years, the average temperature's gone up. Now, whether you believe in global warming or whatever, still, the temperature has gone up. But just a very small amount. And that actually affects us gardeners. You see, the USDA puts out this map, the USDA Hardiness Zone Map, and what they do is they look at the last 30 years of average temperatures and decide whether the map needs updating or not. And the last time it was updated was in 2012, and the time before that, I think it was in 1990. But anyhow, they looked at it in 2020 and basically took temperatures between, I think, 1991 and 2020 and said, hey, we need to update the map again. So that means that all of the zones have pretty much shifted by about half a zone. And of course it depends on where you live, but I do recommend going in and checking out what zone you're in now. For example, I used to be in zone 6 right here along the Ohio River, and now I'm in zone 7. So the average temperature here has gone up about 5 degrees. which really affects us right now in the wintertime. Because your USDA hardiness zone tells you how low of a temperature you can expect. And that tells you what plants are hardy in your area. So you don't want to plant a plant that'll freeze, you want to plant something that'll survive. And that's what the USDA Hardiness Zone Map does. So you can head over to their website, and they have a nifty tool where you can punch in your zip code, and then it'll tell you what zone you're in. Likewise, on our website, we just posted a blog post about it, and you can go there and read up more in detail about what zones are and how they work, and what to look for when you're shopping for plants. So like on the plant tag, it'll usually have what zone those plants can grow in, or what range of zones. So that's all great information to keep in mind. Another thing is just generally knowing your area. For example, I'm right here along the Ohio River, and it creates a microclimate in this area. In the summertime, the river stores up heat, and that means that if you live really close to the river, like I do, that usually you don't have frost until later in the fall, because all that warmth being stored by the river gets slowly dissipated out into the river valley. So yeah, keep that in mind, your local microclimate. And of course, you can always ask your local professionals, whether it's the Extension Service or us at Bob's Market or at your local Home and Garden Center. And well, that is the zones. They are a-changing, and until next time, keep growing. Alright, so yeah, as I said in the video, the USDA Hardiness Zone Map has changed. And it's changed by about half a zone. So the way the zones work is they go in 10-degree increments from Zone 1, which is the coldest, and that is all the way up at the very tippy top of Alaska, all the way down to Zone 13, which is the warmest, and that is like down like far south, like Puerto Rico, tropical areas. And they're divided in 10-degree increments. And then you can also further divide the zones into an A and B zone. So then it's a 5-degree increment. So as I said, I used to be, going from top to bottom, it would be like 1A, 1B, and so on. I used to be in Zone 6B, and now I'm in Zone 7A. So just up the river here, I live further south toward Huntington. Up the river here in Mason, this used to be Zone 6A, and now it's in Zone 6B. So yeah, everything has shifted by about half a zone, which means things that used to be sort of borderline now have more of a chance of surviving in our region. A good example of that would be something like fall mums. It always used to be, and it still pretty much is, that you kind of have like a 50-50 shot of a mum surviving the winter. And that's even if you plant it in a protected area and cover it over with straw to kind of help insulate it during the winter. You still have like a 50-50 shot depending on how cold it gets and if that root ball completely freezes. But now, where the zones have shifted a little bit, you might have a little bit better of a chance of being able to nurse one through the winter. Um, Also, fall pansies. They are survivors. I mean, even if you plant them in the winter with our old zone layout, they would survive through the winter, but now they have an even better chance of not only surviving the winter, but kind of thriving early on in the springtime. So you can kind of get that spring color a little bit earlier. Um, so yeah, it kind of gives you even more reason to plant like fall pansies and all your fall bulbs and stuff like that. So I guess that's the one upside. But I do recommend going in on the USDA map. And if you visit it from a phone, like their website, it's a government website. What can I say? Um, if you go in from a phone and type in your zip code, it'll just have a little pop up that says what zone you're in. But I've found that that's not entirely accurate because, like, my zip code covers a wide area. So it covers from the Ohio River out into more of a wooded area that's further away from the river. And what they do is they just look smack at the middle of that zip code and say, yep, that's what zone it is. Where if you actually visit the exact same website on a desktop computer or a laptop, it actually shows you a map that you can zoom in on and move around and find exactly where you live. So you can type in the zip code, that kind of gets you close, and then you can move in and kind of zoom in with the map. By doing that, like if I typed in my zip code, it said, hey, I'm still in zone 6B. But when I kind of drug the map over to right along the Ohio River, the entire river valley up through is now zone 7A. And that kind of extends almost all the way up to Mason. So, like, if you're in the Point Pleasant area now and you live right along the river, you might want to check because your zone might have changed. And likewise, if you were in zone 6A before, out in Ohio, kind of southeast Ohio, a lot of that has changed to zone 6B now. So all this comes into being important, not only for what plants can survive in your area through the winter, but also kind of those beginning and end of the growing season time period. So planting like an early garden in late March, early April, a lot of your frost tolerant veggies, if you flip those packs of seed over, they usually have a map that's kind of a simplified version of this map. Like they'll divide it into 3 or 4 sections. And then they'll say, if it's March or April, you can sow this seed then, or April, May, something like that. So I've had luck over the past years, just kind of looking at how the winter went. Like, oh, this winter wasn't as bad, so I think I can get by with planting, say, kind of mid-March. I did that this past spring. Like, I had lettuce growing out in my garden in I had it, about 3 or 4 inches tall at the end of March, because I planted it in mid-March and then I put a fabric row cover over top of it to help protect it from the frost. So I was able to push the season a little bit, and I was kind of betting on the weather, and it turns out, based off of the new growing guidelines or the new zone map, that I was actually kind of correct in my hunch. So yeah, check out what zone you're in. It might be really interesting and really informative to read up on that, because it can really help you plan out your garden. And that is the perfect thing to be doing this time of year. It's a great time to sit down with a notebook, and my notebook is covered up right here, but I do a yearly notebook, and one of the things that I start doing this time of year is planning out my garden and figuring out what I'm going to grow, where I'm going to grow it, and also when I'm going to plant it. And then I also figure out like plant succession. So I'm going to do those frost tolerant veggies early on in March and April. Then once we get into the heat in May and June, uh, the lettuce, it starts to bolt and turn bitter. So I'll dig it out and replace it with like tomatoes or something like that. Uh, so it's always good to look at like a map like this and then go from there. And yeah, Patty, she says, I was always in Chicago, so it's definitely warmer here and offers up new possibilities. So, yeah, moving from a climate like Chicago, which Ball Seed, where we get our seed from that we grow, we're a wholesale supplier of seedlings for Ball Seed. They're headquartered in East Chicago. And it's it's kind of interesting the climate difference between there and here. And I have relatives that live in Columbus, Ohio, and even the difference between here and there is interesting. And I've noticed too that like down at my house, further south, it's 45 minutes south of here. I've noticed that things like forsythia and those plants that start blooming early on in spring, I'm usually about a week ahead of Mason. So forsythia will start blooming down in my area, and then about a week later it starts blooming up here. And that all comes down to what zone you're in and kind of timing that springtime. And that is all that I have. I did mention it in the video, but you can head over to our website right now, bobsmarket.com, and under the blog section, the newest blog post goes into a lot more detail about zones and the changes, how they decide to make the changes. Is just a thing that they look at every year, and they always look at the previous 30 years. And if it's a significant enough change, then they update it. But it's usually about once a decade that they update the map. That is, if they need to. So, that is all that I have for this week. I don't see any other questions in the comments on Facebook. I've got YouTube up here, and Twitter and Rumble I am not monitoring right now. I probably need to start monitoring those. But yeah, that is all that I have for this week, and I think I forgot to mention it at the beginning, but we are now broadcasting on Rumble, Facebook, I said Twitter, but it's now X, and YouTube. So you can go to any of those 4 platforms and give us a follow and watch our weekly live show. And, that is all that I have for this week. So until next time, keep growing.